Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fit Lawyer Pod. I am your host, Fit Lawyer Julia, and for today's guest, we have a very extraordinary woman. This is actually the first guest that we've had on whom I have not met in person. We pretty much just met through Instagram. We were both on the Barbershop Confidential podcast with Jonah. So then I found her on Instagram and, we started following each other on Instagram. And she also has her own podcast, which is the G.L.A.M.B, G.L.A.M.B Design Podcast. The information is in the description below. And this woman just has a very extraordinary story. She has overcome some obstacles that I personally would have never even thought of or imagined. And for her to not only overcome those obstacles, but to thrive into the woman that she is today is truly, truly commendable. So when I first heard her episode on Jonah's podcast, she was actually the first one that I was like, all right, let me take this off Spotify and go to YouTube and check this girl out. And it was just it go listen to it because their conversation was so great, and I enjoyed my conversation with her so much the other day. And just every time I either learn something about her via the conversation we had the other day or through her own podcast or just, her Instagram posts, every time I am, I am amazed all over again at everything she has gone through, has accomplished, and is currently accomplishing. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Miss Victoria Rose. Well, hello, Victoria.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so glad, we met on Instagram.
That's right.
Hey, that's 2024. Sometimes you just meet some real ass people on Instagram, believe it or
I've
not.
been meeting a lot of people on Instagram lately, and I'm here for it. Power of social media.
And we were both on Jonah's podcast. I listened to your episode.
Yep. You probably got a kick out of that one.
Oh my gosh, you guys had me. But Victoria Rose, so you are a businesswoman. You run multiple businesses. You have your own podcast called G.L.A.M.B. And since we just met, I don't have too much info. Can you just tell us a little bit about the business you do and what is your podcast about?
Yeah, definitely. So I have 3 businesses. I'm a serial, what I like to call entrepreneur. So my first business venture I launched in July of 2020, and that is called Executives Extension. We provide white glove executive support services, and we have 3 lines of business. So or 3 service lines. And so executive assistance, operational oversight and management, and interim leadership support. But very quickly after I launched that business, I realized I'm just one person and I can only handle so much. So 6 months later, I launched my second business, which is called Virtual Victorias. And that's an ed tech platform that I created. It's an online course curriculum that pretty much takes my 10 plus years experience working in corporate as an executive assistant and making that into a course that's teachable so people can learn that skill set. So that doesn't necessarily guarantee you position with Executives Extension, but it does allow you to get that training. And then my newest venture is my tech startup that I started last year in July, and it's an AI-powered virtual assistant app called Victoria with a Q. It's very early stage.
Wow, that's really interesting because AI is still something I'm super on the fence about because it's I think of iRobot. So Tell me a
And
little
you
bit.
know what? I just had a work business call about this yesterday because I'm looking to collaborate for this new tech startup. And that's literally what I said just yesterday to this gentleman I was talking to. I said, there's two people in the AI world. There's the people that accept it open arms and they see how beneficial it is to their business and how much more they can do. And then there's the people that are afraid of it because they can't understand it. And so what I think is
Yeah.
the issue is that you have, like what you said, like iRobot, especially when referring to a relationship between an executive and an executive assistant, which is a very personal one. It's built on trust. And people have a very hard time trusting technology. So that's why I came up with Victoria with a Q, because Victoria is me. She is me in an illustrated form, a very realistic looking illustrated form. She has my cloned voice and she's animated. So when you put the humanity, the human touch on AI, it makes it a little bit more relatable and a little bit more trustable.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's really cool that it's like your actual voice. So,
Yeah.
like you said, it does make it a little bit more like, because then it doesn't feel like a stranger, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
when Alexa and Siri came into our life, I was like, I don't know you, bitch.
Right. Right. And that's my goal, right? That's the end game goal is like,
Yeah,
who needs an Alexa when you can have a virtual Victoria? It's like
yeah, like
gonna
get out,
replace that bitch. She's
get
old
out.
news.
But exactly, like I think you explained it so well that
Thank you.
it is just kind of the fear of the unknown, that's very natural of us as, humans, as mammals. And this is something that, again, like we grew up seeing in movies, but now it's like a real ass thing.
Yeah,
But I love like your vision for it and how you explained everything. It was like
thank you.
AI 101.
You can sign up to test the beta.
Hey. Um, and I do want to talk about your podcast a little bit. It's called
Yeah,
G.L.A.M.B. And I
yeah,
know you explained it on your podcast on what it stands for, and how you came to it, but can you
yeah. Yeah,
explain it
that's
again?
actually my newest venture, and by newest venture, not business. So it's my passion project. I started it in January of this year. We launched January 10th, and it's actually called the G.L.A.M. Design. And so G.L.A.M. is an acronym. It stands for Growing, Learning, Achieving, Motivating, and Believing. And that is actually the name of my soon-to-be nonprofit that I'm looking to create. So I've had the name for quite some time, but when I was really trying to figure out what am I going to call this podcast, I'm like, I already have the name. I already have the entity. It makes perfect sense. But really, the theme of the podcast is I show my scars so you know you can heal. So the whole theme is about healing. It's about my healing journey. And within the podcast, there's actually a playlist called Victory. Victory is a little bit of a play on words. It's like Vic story, history, like
I
like
love
what
that.
is like victory, like all the things.
Yes.
So there's
I love
24
that.
ep thank you. Yeah, people have loved the name. It's 24 episodes. It's like been mapped out for the entire year. It's every other week. And every single episode represents a different hat or like that I've worn in my life or like a stage in my life. And I tell my story and I tell the lessons that I've learned and really how I struggled through it. It's spoken through a very vulnerable, authentic voice. Like I don't hold back. I cry, I curse, I give all of me to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've listened to a few episodes, and you have like such a crazy upbringing. Like looking at you today, hearing everything you just said in the last few minutes, like the business you run, like the AI, as well as, even a nonprofit. You like you would not think, the type of upbringing you had, because you went through some crazy family shit growing up, like with
Yeah,
your mom and going through foster care,
yeah.
and all of that. So when
Thanks for
when did
listening.
yes, of course, girl. Well, obviously, I first
Yeah.
saw you on Jonah's podcast because I
Right.
think I was there a few like weeks before you. And then, so you guys were talking about your upbringing, your podcast. I was like, this shit. Girl, so I listen to podcasts when I'm like cooking and doing shit. Your episode had me shook. I had to put down the pan or stop the brooming or something. I was like, ooh. Oh, let me sit down for this one. Oh.
You are right. I love it. That's
So
good.
yeah, so obviously then I hopped on and
Mhm.
listened to first stalked you on Instagram, obviously first things first, and then hopped onto your podcast and I
I
just
love a girl's girl. I love a girl's girl. Let's go.
yes. So you with me when I'm cooking, when I'm cleaning.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that, honestly, that's a big reason why I decided to do this podcast because, we're human at the end of the day, right? And so it's human nature to look at somebody and to pass judgment, and to just automatically label someone based off the way that they look, maybe the way they walk, the way they talk. And when I tell you every single person has gotten me wrong from like the jump, like there's not one person who had me pinned for who I actually am just off the rip. And that was like the consistent feedback that I was getting from like dating or even like friendships or even like business related relationships is wow, there's so many more layers to you. There's so much more about you that I never knew. And, the best parts of you are not visible and like known. And I'm like, people need to see this. People need to know this.
Yeah, absolutely. And even though like you and I've never met in person and we really just started following each other recently, I think because you are so vulnerable on your podcast. And so, you know, I know how personable you are. I know like your upbringing, the shit you've been through. So it's like, yeah, like she's a real ass girl who went through some real ass shit.
Hmm.
And it is unfortunate. Like obviously you're stunning, right? Like that's
Thank
just a
you.
kind of like the first thing people see. And then I think they may be surprised to hear about your business ventures and what a businesswoman you are. And then so that's another layer. And then they hear about, you were in foster care and you have like all these foster siblings and the whole situation with your mom and the stepdad, like that shit. Victoria, that shit is, I have never heard of that. I mean,
It's thick. It's deep.
yeah,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, just like a quick, maybe like nutshell
Like,
version of it. I know
yeah,
you've said it
yeah.
like
Oh no, it's
so many
totally
times.
fine. Yeah. For so long, and I talk about this in my podcast, I ran from telling this story and I didn't own my truth and I hid behind it because of fear of judgment. But like now I feel so empowered to talk about it. So anytime I'm given an opportunity, I'm happy to shed some light. But in a nutshell, I was raised by a very strong, independent woman who was a phenomenal mother. She did everything she possibly could in her power to give me the best life she could. That doesn't mean that we were without struggle. I mean, we were on welfare, food stamps. I mean, my mom would get up at like 4 in the morning, put me in her car and like go deliver newspapers, like whatever, by any means, like she got it done. But, you know, after being celibate for 15 years of my life and prioritizing me and damn near being obsessed with me, that's like her whole life was being a good mom. She met a really, really bad man and he was abusive. And that is ultimately what ended me up in foster care. And so at 15, I spent 2 months in a shelter. 16 is when I started living with the first and only foster family I ever lived with. And I went from being an only child to the oldest of six. And I became responsible for everything that they did and pretty much became like the parent in the household. So it was my responsibility to look after them, to make sure that they did their homework, their chores, they stayed out of trouble, pretty much ran the household. I mean, when you really think about it, I was like a free nanny and like handmaiden for my foster
And
mother.
the younger siblings at this foster parents' house, were they the foster parents like bio kids or were they other foster children?
They were all other foster children. So she did
Okay.
have three biological kids, but they were adult children. And
Okay.
so they were like the oldest one I think was like maybe 12 years or 13 years older than me, and then the middle one was like 10 years older than me, and then the youngest might have been like 7 years older than me.
Oh wow. Okay.
So yeah, so by the time I was 16 when I was in the house, so they were like well into their like late 20s to like early 30s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But then she did have two kids that were adopted, like out of the foster kids. Two of them were
Oh,
adopted,
okay.
that she adopted from like baby, but and then all the
Oh,
rest of
wow.
us were foster. And then she adopted me 3 days before I turned 18.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Hmm.
Because it's like it's very blended. I when I was in high school, we had, foster children kind of come through and leave, and that family, they didn't have their own biological kids, and they kind of just like took
Mm.
in foster children as they came to town. But
Probably because they had a heart to like want to actually parent and take care of children, and that's why you should do foster care. But my foster mother had ulterior motives that ended up revealing themselves later.
well,
It was all off of a financial gain.
yeah, I mean, like when
Hmm.
when the first time I heard that, I was like, oh, like that's a nice little retirement plan. Just
Yeah.
have some kids, they listen, and then get an older one to take care of the little ones. Like, you raised your own kids, and then the state's gonna pay for them. Like, yeah, so let's
Hmm.
chill.
Please don't do that.
No, absolutely not. Oh my gosh, because
Yeah.
like I obviously I don't have personal,
Yeah.
so
It's a
I
very traumatic experience to
yes,
be ripped out of your home during adolescence, the only home, the
yes,
only parent you've ever known, and then being placed into a home with strangers, people you don't know, and then to not be supported in the way that is most effective for you to become a really good functioning, like contributing member to society.
yeah,
My foster mother is responsible for me having very deeply rooted identity issues. She's the one that taught me, don't tell anyone you're a foster child. Don't tell anyone that, you're a white girl. They're going to beat your ass. And there was a lot of emotional like manipulation, and just so much damage, like years of therapy that was needed after living with her.
yeah. Do you think that was her way of scaring you guys into obedience?
I do. I think that the tactics and methods that she used are like very similar to like military
Oh,
tactics,
wow.
like, and it was like very much like boot camp, like in the sense of like you had to do your chore. I mean, that's parenting in general. So, it's some people would be like, what's wrong with that? But it was the approach. It was the
Yeah.
way that it was done. And more so, it was when we got in trouble, it was the
Hmm.
silent treatment and like putting us on
Oh,
ice. And then it was having the other siblings, like basically, we were all competing for her love and to try to be her favorite.
yeah.
Instead of her teaching camaraderie among siblings and like for you to have that bond and have each other's back, it was a way where it's like, oh, if mommy's mad at you, then I have to be mad at you too, because if I'm not, then I'm gonna get on her shit list too. So it was
Yeah.
like she didn't foster that kind of connection between us. It was like we were all competing for her love, her affection, her approval. Yeah.
And how is your relationship with your adopted or foster siblings? I don't know how you refer to them as like,
Yeah. You know what? So I talk about this in the podcast, but in 2014, I cut off all communication with my foster family, like indefinitely. And there was only one sister that I had remained in contact with, and that was the one that came in just after me. So we actually never
okay.
lived together because when I left and went to college, she tried to replace me with another like big girl to take care of the little
Oh,
ones.
wow.
So, and that's why her and I had bonded, because she quickly realized that she was being held to the standard that I had left
Hmm.
behind and trying to fill my shoes. And we're two different people, two very different people. And she finally caved and came to me for advice, like, how do I get through this? How do I survive? Type thing.
Yeah.
And that's how we connected and created a bond. But over the years, that had its challenges in remaining that friendship as well, because you know it goes without saying, but I'll reiterate it. Any child that's been through the foster care system has very deeply rooted traumatic issues and like things that they need to work through. So, my foster sister, this one specifically that I'm referring to, um, is still working through a lot of those things, and also had trouble coming out about her sexuality at one point. And so we're just two very different people in our approach to life. So when she came to visit me in San Diego for the first time, I was so excited. My sister's here. I want to show her a good time. I want to introduce her to all my friends. I want to show her off. And she's like, I just want to be a hermit and like be with you. I don't want to be around all these people. Like, and it's like two just very different approaches to life, you know? And so that caused some friction, and the meeting didn't end the best way, and we kind of fell out. So then this podcast almost, well, it's a decade after I disconnected from the rest of the family, but it's been, I think she came to visit me in like 2018. So, you know, do the math on that. But after all those years, I reconnected with her because of the podcast. And one of my other sisters too, the youngest one. And that was like really nice and very healing. And I enjoyed that. But even since the podcast released, we've now since disconnected again.
Yeah, I think, sometimes people get upset when you speak your own truth. Like you
So
you
true.
don't you don't disclose any names, you don't even disclose like anything like any personal information. Like only the people who knew you might maybe growing up at that time would know. Like obviously I would have no idea, like if I saw your adopted mom or siblings, like it's not I'm like, oh bitch, like I know what you did, right? Like you
You know
you
what?
keep
I
it
want to
super
dive into this.
anonymous.
I want to dive into this. You want to know why I want to dive into this? Because I'm talking to a lawyer right now. Because
Facts.
this is how it went down. Let me break it because I know nobody knows about this yet, you know, because this just happened. But like, so I just released um it was the so there was like the foster care, there the foster child episode, and then there was the scholar episode, and it was almost like a part one and part two because it was the trajectory of that relationship from when I lived in the house while I was a foster child, and then now here I am adopted 3 days before I turn 18 as an adult, thinking I have a forever family, but I'm still being treated like a foster child. You know what I mean? That's kind of the part one, part two thing about it. And so it was after the scholar episode came out that, you know, I do typically the way I do it is like promotion reels that lead up to the release of the podcast. And then the week of the release of the podcast, it's like highlight clips from the podcast itself. So this is the promotion week leading up to the podcast, not even the podcast itself. And she's upset about one of the promotion reels and something that's publicly posted on Facebook that anyone can look at any given time. And it's like, it's one of those reels that has like effects. So like it moves fast, like it's on screen, like you can't even see it, it's moving around. And she's like flips out on me and she's like, you know, you have to take it down. This is a barrier. You know, my name is on there. And I'm like, and mind you, she's not even using her real name on Facebook. Like it's like an alias. And I'm like, first of all, no one is paying that close attention. No one's paying that close. I promise you. I said I had to go watch it 3 times to see what it is that you're talking about. I said someone would have to literally be like digging, pause it, look for it, like screenshot. Like no one cares that much, you know? And she was like, well, this is my boundary and you need to respect it. And she's like demanding and ordering. And I'm just like, one, you don't pay my bills. You just came into my life. Learn how to talk to somebody. And then she threatened me. She was like, if you don't take it down, then I'm going to have to do what I need to do to protect my, you know, my image and likeness or whatever. And I'm going to report it. I said, do what you got to do. And then I just blocked her because I don't have the time.
Yeah, it's
I
it's
don't
just
care that much.
unbelievable when people are going to be like, that's defamation. It's like, no, I found it on the internet. You posted it and I just reposted it. Like you no longer have a right to privacy once you post that on the internet. Like,
Okay. And a lawyer just said that.
no,
Case
that's
in point, mic
yeah,
drop.
no, that is fact, like
But here's the thing, it wasn't even anything defamation. Like there was nothing bad that I was saying about her. If anything, it was in her support and in her defense. But it was just she just didn't want anything associated with her.
yeah.
Well, then
And you
don't
know
put
what?
it out there on the internet, babe.
Yeah. And like that's okay. Sometimes you just gotta let them go, whether that's,
Well, the
family,
biggest
friends,
learning
men.
lesson, yeah, the biggest learning lesson that I've learned in this situation is that typically when you make a decision to put a boundary in place because it preserves your mental health, your peace, your healing, whatever it may be, that boundary is there for a reason. And time can pass, and yeah, time does heal wounds, and you can reconcile with someone, but that doesn't mean that you need to give them access to your life again. You can still keep that
Hmm.
boundary in place. That I think was the
Absolutely.
biggest learning lesson in this is that I thought that this was, oh, I can open up the door to that again and we can reconcile and we can pick up where we left off. But no, there was a reason why you were left where you were before. Thank
Yep.
you for reminding me.
Yeah, of course, because sometimes we have soft spots for people, whether that's family or friends, and men that we know we should let go, but there's a soft spot every once in a while, and you're like,
Hmm.
I'm smarter than this.
Do we want to go down that rabbit hole of men?
Yes, and I was going to ask you, because you are so open and vulnerable on your podcast, how has that affected your dating life, if any?
Well, funny that you ask because, in addition to all the different hats that I've worn in my life and, all the lives that I've lived in my very short 35 years, there has been three great loves already. And they say that there's only three great loves. I'm like, well, am I going to be single for the rest of my life? Because I definitely had the three already, and so hopefully there's a fourth on the horizon. But there is an episode dedicated to each one of those men in my life. So it's the girlfriend part one, part two, and part three. And so far, the girlfriend part three is that, which was my most recent boyfriend. And that's essentially the catalyst that brought me to wanting to do this podcast because I think it was like my rock bottom point of like my mental health and like it's time to start doing the work. And then part one is actually coming out on Wednesday. So,
Yay, that's so exciting. And by the time this comes out, your episodes would already be out, and I'll
yeah.
definitely put
Okay.
all
Yeah.
of the info in the description box below, and
Awesome.
then link it on Instagram. Are you on TikTok, by the way?
Yeah, I'm on
Okay.
all platforms.
Okay.
TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Even though it sounds like TikTok might be getting banned. Did you hear that?
Yes, so I did hear that. And
Yeah.
even if the bill passes, these things take years to go into effect. And
Okay.
I don't know. I personally don't see it getting passed because there's also so much commerce that goes on TikTok. Yeah, there's videos, but there's
So
a
much.
lot of commerce, and wherever there is big US companies involved, like they don't want a giant portion of their revenue just gone like that, because
Yeah.
there are a lot of TikTok users, and apparently people buy a lot of shit on there. I personally have
Yeah.
not fallen victim, but I heard.
I haven't either, but I know many people who have.
And
So
I heard it's a slippery slope. Like you're just like, I'll just get one, and next thing you know, like it's a second Amazon.
I'm not that easily influenced, but to each their own, For
Yeah,
for all the girlies that are constantly buying makeup, it's not a good place for you to hang out.
yeah. And I wouldn't buy makeup that like I can't like test or try, or like at least like trust the brand. Like these random
Well, the
TikToks.
big brands are also selling on there. Like Tarte, I think, does like a huge amount of their e-commerce
Oh,
on
that's right.
TikTok.
That's right.
Yeah, they sold out in like one day for their, I don't even know how to say the word, but it's like mark for like lip oil, like the lippies. Like they sold out in like
Wow.
one day or something. It was insane. Yeah.
Yeah, you think Tarte is not going to do everything in their power to like prevent TikTok from being banned? Like that is so much money
Yeah.
for these companies.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, like the older I get, especially, as a businesswoman, and I'm sure you can understand, is that it's just all about who's making the money and who has the
When
biggest
it's not
control, the
about the
biggest
money, it's
say.
about the money.
Facts, facts. Um, but yeah, so I did listen to. I think I think you talked about one or two of your loves when you were on when you're on Jonah's podcast, and like dabbled
Yeah.
into some of your other episodes. But are you so you are currently single, as you've just said, but are you dating and looking for that great fourth love?
I am dating. I am. And, you would think it, oh, she needs to take a while after the last one because I was so in love with him. Like, definitely. So I was in a 5-year relationship, and that's the one that's coming out on Wednesday. That's the girlfriend part one. And I was more in love in this last relationship that I was in, which was only 2.5 months. I know, crazy. I know you listened to the episode. So, like,
Jonah
it
let you know. Jonah went savage on you.
he went savage. He did. But I fire back. I held my own. The thing is that, like, you have certain compatibility with
Mhm.
like that can just not be matched, and as you get older in life, like, what it is that you're looking for, you're established. Like, my 5-year relationship, I was 21 to 26 when I was dating him. I was still figuring myself out. So, but now at 35 years old, I know exactly what I'm looking for. And that man showed zero red flags, at least in the very early stages of dating. It wasn't until the week of our breakup that things started to hit the fan. But, I stayed single after that breakup as long as we were together. So I just recently started dating again, like 2 weeks ago, and I already met somebody, and we had 3 dates.
Yay.
Yeah, we had 3 days. No, don't say yay. Don't say yay yet.
Oh
Sorry, my
no.
dog. Yeah, yeah, we're already there. So, we had 3 dates, and the problem is like I'm looking to date for marriage now. Like, I know exactly what I'm looking for in a partner, and so at this age, and I don't know how old you are. I don't know if we're like in the same age bracket or not, but
Yeah, I'm 32. We're the same age, girl.
okay, okay. So, like, obviously, the older we get, like, the higher the chances are that we're going to meet somebody who's been married before or has kids. And, I personally don't want to date somebody who's been married or has kids, but I can make an exception if he seems like he's worth it. So this guy seemed like he was worth it. He's a former U.S. attorney. He was a federal prosecutor. Now he's general counsel for this really big, company that I will remain anonymous. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to get to know him. Extremely intelligent, like, great conversation, great first date. The problem is that he is still technically married.
Oh,
He's legally separated, and he had to explain that to me because I've never dealt with anything like this and never wanted to. So, legally separated since May of last year, is almost a year legally separated. And he's telling me it's like there's no drama, right? He's older. He's like 43. So he's like, his soon to be ex-wife is only a year younger, and so, it's very amicable, and it's going to be, very easy, blah blah blah. But as I'm getting to know him and we're talking, oh, well, there's these issues, right? And the divorce is being held up, and he's got to watch his money and how he's spending it. And this is going to sound very superficial. I'm highly aware that it's going to sound very superficial. And if you actually ever do watch every episode of my podcast, you'll know I am not a materialistic person. Like, I'm very much more than just a skin. Like, I'm way more than just skin deep. Like, there's many layers to me. But I'm not afraid to admit that I like nice things and I want a certain kind of lifestyle. And I provide those things for myself. So I don't think it's asking too much to meet somebody who's going to do those things and, like, for me, right?
I absolutely agree with you. Speak your truth. There is nothing wrong for wanting, like you said, wanting a certain lifestyle, liking certain things when you can
Mm-hmm.
afford it yourself, right? Like, you
Right.
are not, like, you are in legitimate business. You're not, pimping or hoeing or killing people. Like, you are running legitimate businesses. You're making your own money, and wanting someone who is at your financial level is not shallow and is not gold digging. And I will preach that from every mountaintop, because it's like, how am I a gold digger when I'm doing this for myself and asking him to do the same? It's not like I'm living in a shanty and I need a Captain Save a Hoe and he's got to be a rich ass Save a Hoe. Like, no, like, I'm not a hoe that needs saving. I need a hoe
Uh-uh.
that like
Not even a hoe
no.
at all. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Well, I say all this to say, and like this was probably the only like, well, I don't want to say the only, like in the this was only like a week of dating, by the way. So I say early stages, like a week of dating. But like he, in the process of explaining the divorce to me, was like very transparent, which I love. I love honesty. I love transparency. So he tells me how much money he was making, which is like a red flag. Like you don't tell people those things. But he told me he was making $1.2 million at the law firm that he was a partner at. And that when he moved to San Diego, he took a pay cut. And yeah, $400,000 pay cut is a big deal, but $800,000 is nothing to bat an eye at. That's still a really great salary. So I'm like, okay, you know, he's making good money. He's making way more money than me. I think I make good money and I do well for myself, but like, this is the kind of man that I would want to settle down with because he can provide the kind of lifestyle that I see myself living. And so obviously as we're dating, I'm paying attention and he's very like frugal and like damn near cheap. Like, you know what I mean? Like our first date, we go out to drinks. He doesn't even offer like, do you want any food? But I had already eaten, not a big deal. I looked past it. We had a great first date, great conversation, had drinks, whatever. Second date, we go to the movies. And I'm sure you can relate being another strong, independent woman. And like also of my like skill set, what I do for work, like he had his kids, right? So it's hard for him to be like multitasking. I know men can't multitask.
Quick pause. Kids with an S. How many kids did he have?
Two.
Okay.
Yeah, two. And they're young, like 2 and 4. So young kids. So I'm like,
Dang.
okay, he's got his
That's
hands
a
full.
lot.
So it
Young
is.
kids
It's
are a
a lot.
lot because you're
Mm.
going to be committing to raising a whole nother set of kids that are not yours.
And I want
Again.
to have kids of my own too. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you know, that happens. And then, so the next day we're going out to the movies, right? So I look up movie times. I pick the movie, right? So I'm leading now where he should be doing this. So he, you know, paid for the movie tickets, whatever. But then when we get to the movie, it's like, it's Sinopolis, right? So it's a dine-in movie theater. So you think that we're going to like order dinner and stuff. As soon as we sit down, he's like, oh, I'm feeling dessert. And like my intuition was like telling me like that this is weird. You know, like I thought we were gonna have dinner, you're going straight to dessert. So I feel uncomfortable ordering dinner if he's not gonna be ordering dinner. But I don't want anything sweet. So I'm like, I think I'm just gonna go with an appetizer. I want something savory. But I'm like already holding back. With a man who makes $800,000 a year, by the way. Well,
Allegedly.
no,
Allegedly.
no, it's not allegedly. No, these are proven facts. You can Google it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. All this
So
is
the
like,
800,000 salary is real.
yeah, it's real. Yeah,
Then
it's
that's
real.
even more annoying.
I know. It gets better. We're gonna continue. So, so that's like date number two, right? And I should say this, like, he's very handsome, but he's very much a square and like redefines what square is. Like, I say, hey, I'm coming comfy, casual, cute, and I think he knows what that means. And I show up with like Lululemon leggings and like a crop top and like this oversized hoodie and like a dad hat. And he shows up looking like he's going to Thanksgiving dinner with a cable knit sweater, some really nice jeans, and some dress sneakers. And I'm just like, oh, and then he picks me up in a Subaru with two baby seats in the back. And I drive a Mercedes Benz. And again, like, I know it's superficial, surface level things, but I'm like, I like certain kinds of things. And like, this is already very obvious that we're two very different people, right? But again, we're attracted to each other and we're both sapiosexuals, like we're attracted to intelligence. So I still continue to give it a try, right? So now today was supposed to be our, well, actually, no, we had a third date. So I brought him with me to a networking event, and afterwards we're supposed to have dinner. This time I intentionally said I'm not going to involve myself in any of the planning. So I had to ask him. I said, hey, where are we going to dinner? Did you make reservations? No, I haven't made reservations, but I will. Okay, that's all I say. So he makes reservations at Patrini's. Do you know what Patrini's is?
Patrini's. It sounds familiar. It's like Italian with a green logo.
It's not a green logo, but it is Italian. It sounds Italian. But the reason why it doesn't sound familiar is because it's not a hotspot restaurant. It's not anywhere that anybody would want to go. Like it's like your hole in the wall Italian spot. I order DoorDash from there sometimes when I want like food. You know, it's like I could have
Okay.
walked in there in sweats. but I'm dressed up in professional attire and heels because we just came from a networking event. So anyway, we sit down, we eat, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go with I'm gonna order what I normally order when I order DoorDash. But they had changed the recipe. It was terrible. It was bland. It had no flavor. I ended up not even eating. And of course, he offered me some of his food, but I didn't want it. And so I literally just sat there and watched him eat. And at the end of the day, he wasn't like, oh, do you want to go to the restaurant across the street? Let me get you something. I feel terrible that you didn't eat. As a matter of fact, I said, don't worry about it. I have food at home. Like I can just eat my leftovers from last night. He's like, well, what's that? I said, I made pasta last night. He's like, I'm not going to say what I want to say. I said, no, go ahead, say it. He's like, well, why didn't we just eat that? Are you serious? Like, we're in the courting stage. You think I'm going to invite you over to just casually eat leftovers at my house and we haven't even gone out on one official dinner date? Like, are you like this is the man who makes $800,000 a year? And
Wait,
and I and
wasn't your guys' first date like a normal dinner date?
no, I remember I
Oh, it
said we
was
just
just
went out for
drinks.
drinks.
So it
Yes.
was drinks and then
And then the
movie
movies where
and
he
then
ordered
Petrini.
cookies for dessert and then Patrini's. Yes. So now this was supposed to be our fourth date. And I am a very vocal person. I'm very like
Mm-hmm.
I don't hold back. I'm very transparent. So after the Patrini situation, I told him the next day I was kind of bothered by it. I'm like, listen, like I just feel like we're speaking two different languages. I think that we have two different interests and like I'm in a place right now where like I care about experiences and like I want to be able to enjoy the things that I like with my partner. And so I realize you're like a meat and potatoes kind of guy, but like I want to eat at like the hot spot restaurants. Like because I really don't eat a lot. Like I'm the type that will order an appetizer. I'm honestly a really cheap date because I eat like really small portions. But I'm like, it's the ambiance for me. And it's like the company that I'm with and creating the memories. So like it's the extra effort of like, let me make reservations at a nice place, because I look at the woman in front of me and I know what I'm dealing with. And so I explained that to him. I'm like, I want to travel. I want to do these things. And so he goes as far as to say, no, that's what I like too. I don't want to date somebody who's like me. I know I'm very serious. And so I appreciate you saying these things because I need to let my hair down more and I need to be more fun. And, I actually will probably be going to London soon and I would love to invite you. And of course, like, I would help pay for it. And I'm like, okay, this sounds a little bit more my speed. Like this, okay, maybe all it took was a conversation. So now I told him, like, okay, let's do a redo of our first dinner date. So like Friday, that's supposed to be tonight. And so all that's planned, right? So then, like midday today, I text him and I'm like, hey, so what time are we meeting tonight? Like, where are we going? He was like, oh, I was thinking like 8:30. And I was thinking we can just grab dessert at Morton's. Again with the dessert.
Yeah, what I don't understand. Is he a kid? Like, what is it with him and just grabbing dessert?
It's the dessert. So I
Like, I
said,
feel like that's like you might as well just get like drinks and appetizers, like do it Spanish style, get some tapas. Like, what is it with this guy and desserts?
because this is his way of trying to be cheap, girl. So then I say to him, I was like, I said, I can tell you've been out of the dating scene for a while because honestly, 8:30 is not too late for dinner. I said, but if you want to get dessert, totally cool. But would you mind if I order dinner because I like to have dinner? And he goes, yeah, it's fine this time, but I just want to scale back on like, the nice fancy dinners because I'm trying to be a little bit more disciplined with my finances.
So he wants to
That
scale back from zero? I'm so confused because you guys have no idea. Because
part.
what are you scaling back from
Yeah,
zero?
so
So you want to?
that's literally what I said to him. I was like, my response, like that was when I ended it. I was like, listen, like this, it's very obvious that we're on two different pages. Like we want two different things. We're forcing it at this point. And I said, this essentially would have been our first dinner date because the last one you actually didn't pay for my meal since they took it off the bill since I didn't eat it. I was like, but I'm looking for this kind of experience. Like and this is where it's gonna sound really harsh, but my guy, yes, you're handsome, but you're 43 years old. You are about to be divorced. And mind you, this is the second wife. This is the second wife.
Oh,
The
hell no. Oh, no. Hell no. No.
I found that out on date number one. So the first
No.
one, he got married young when he was in the army, and it was one of those situations where it was a no fault divorce. They didn't have any kids, so I kind of looked past that one. But either way, two
No.
times divorced, two kids. You have all this baggage. You make $800,000 a year. You want a baddie, but then you don't want to be generous. Like,
Are the two
help
kids
me to.
from the same wife, or are they two different
Yeah,
moms too?
yeah.
Okay.
No, the same wife, the soon to be ex wife that he separated from. Yeah,
No.
yeah,
Two ex-wives?
yeah.
No. So
Like
I
you have to get with the times. Like you have to know what you're dealing with. Like you see what I look like. You see what kind of woman I am.
hmm
So like if that's not something that you feel you can maintain, then why are you even shooting your shot?
because men don't give a fuck and they just want to like it's not a waste of time to them if they get a chance to smash, but they're okay with wasting your time and your affection. At the end of the day, that's just like
I
that's really
can't.
what it is. It's
I can't
pathetic.
deal.
But um
Teddy, sorry, my dog. Go to your bed.
no, it's fine.
Go to your bed
We
right
actually
now.
both have Pomeranians, but I have a little
Do
old
we?
guy. Yeah, he
Fed,
was they're both
lay
like
down.
little black Pomeranians too, which I think is so
We
cute.
have to
But
do a play date.
my dog's like 16. He don't play, girl.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
My
he's
dog
my
would
little
actually
old
like your
man.
dog because he likes to be the dominant one. So when he gets around old dogs, he knows that he's like has the more energy.
I love
Yeah.
that. Um, but so
I needed to get that off my chest. I feel so much lighter.
good, good. No, honestly,
But this is my first
fuck that guy.
re-entrance back into the dating scene. I'm like, come on, man.
So I know you're new to the close friend circle, but welcome, welcome to
I
the adventures.
love watching what you post. I love it. I love
Well,
it.
welcome to the green bubble.
Welcome to the green bubble.
So,
Yes.
there is actually like a whole list of questions I will ask on the first date, right? Like if he's been married and have kids, like you said, he's got to be fine, like fine, and he's got to make that right amount of money to be able to take care of those kids and me, and because none of that shit
That's
is
why
cheap.
I looked past it. In any other situation, I'd be like deal breaker, but I was like,
Yeah.
nah, like you
Um,
look good and you make the money. So,
and then one question I'll always ask is, or among the list of questions I ask is, how long was your last relationship? Why did it end? And what did you learn from it? Because
mhm.
I've had men straight up tell me, they're like, oh, well, when I ask them, what did you learn from your last relationship? Like, the serious one.
They look at you
Um,
dumb. Like,
they say some stupid shit and says it's her fault, and I'm immediately like so turned off. Like, I asked you what you learned and you took this chance to complain about her. Like, that to me is a huge red flag. So basically, you learn nothing.
mhm,
Like, you
mhm.
learn to be a little baby back bitch and play victim.
Yep,
Like,
yep.
so that's like, and but two ex-wives, I'm like nah, I can't be
This
so
was a
foolish.
first for me. This was
That's
absolutely a first for me.
wild. Yeah.
Mhm.
And young kids are really hard too
But
because
it's like I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, like at what age do we get where if we meet somebody and he doesn't have like he's never been married or never had kids, like at what point does that become a red flag?
I think it
You
depends
know?
on his age and what he's done, right?
Well, and
Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like 43 years old, decorated with all these accomplishments, making all the money, and like if he had never been married and never had kids, I'd be concerned.
yeah, it's so hard, girl. It's so hard.
So I'm like you can make anything make sense if you want to. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I honestly consider myself to be like so picky. Like my friends make a joke about me. They're like, Victoria, your standards are from here to heaven. And they're not wrong. Like majority of guys don't even make it to a first date, let alone a second. And the
Yeah.
fact that he made it as far as he did is because I saw the potential. But I'm sorry. Like
Yeah.
if you're gonna be penny pinching around me and you have no reason to, that's not gonna work. I'd be the first one to grind it out with you. For my 5 year relationship, this episode is coming out on Wednesday. You will learn that out of those 5 years, he was unemployed for 3, and I was that ride or die. And I told myself, never again.
Never again. Been there, done that too, girl. And it's okay. It's okay because at the end of the day, like what I always say is don't be mad or don't be sad about the love you gave out because that person probably needed it. Whether it was like
So true.
romantically or platonically, friends or family that you've had falling out with, like never regret the love that you gave it because they probably needed it, like the whole
Hmm.
church thing is kind of new to me, but I think it's been very therapeutic for me and it's been very healing for me. Like, I think that just shows that like God gave you enough love to runneth over and pour onto their cups. And like he's obviously, blessed you with a good career, like you're stunning, like and it does become hard, right?
Hmm.
Just simply wanting someone to be at your level, like you're unwed, you've never been married, never had kids, you don't have that extra baggage. Like you have
I feel like I'm a
assets.
unicorn. I feel like, and that's kind of like, as terrible as it may sound, it's just the reality. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like I'm in my prime right now. So if
Yeah.
I'm going to settle for a man that comes with all that baggage of like two ex-wives, two kids, be 3 years old, then ultimately I want to make sure that it's worth my while for me to have made that decision. You know,
Absolutely.
when I can literally have my pick of the litter. You feel me?
Because it's like everything's like a scale, right? Like let's be real, dating in our 20s is different than our 30s. You have assets, you have businesses, you have up and coming projects. You don't have liabilities, which are what children are. Like especially
Right.
young ones. It's expensive to raise them and if
With
he's
the bigger
probably
liability isn't even the kids, it's the ex-wife that's taking 50% of everything he has.
and then you also got to worry about possible alimony, right? Like if she claims she's
he's already
already
paying
used to,
he's
yeah,
already paying alimony.
yeah, of course, because
From the date of separation. Yeah, he's been paying alimony since like literally May of last year.
yeah.
Hmm.
So that's probably why he's
Which is
penny
why,
pinching.
yeah, no, that is, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I get it. Like, I know you're shelling out a lot of money, but then like also understand that you need to date somebody who doesn't care about those things then, because you can afford to do that. And he
Yeah.
even said that from the very beginning, like money's not an object. I've been very blessed in that sense. And it's like, don't paint a picture and then try to backtrack once I hold your feet to the fire.
I
Because
think
those
that's
were his
yeah.
exact words. Like, money's not an object and money will never be an object. I've always been very blessed in that way. Like, I'm very fortunate. Like, these were his actual words. But then you want to tell me you want to scale back with nice dinners, like you said, scale back to zero, from zero, like
From zero.
from zero. How do we scale? Like, so we're gonna go to -1.
That I think that's what's even more annoying is the fact that he told you his income just to be a cheap ass. Like speak with your actions, not your words, bro. Like
Because let's address the elephant in the room, okay? Because there's an actual reason behind all of that a lot of people will not actually verbalize. The elephant in the room is that he knows that I look expensive, so
yeah.
he had to say something to reel me in. But if you're not willing to make actions off of the words, then don't say them. That part,
So there's
right?
there's drugstore and then there's Sephora. If you keep like don't go into
No, no,
Sephora
no, baby.
expecting
There's drugstore and then there's Dior.
I'll be honest, I'm not super big on the Dior makeup. Do you like them?
Well, I was just giving an example. I actually don't own any Dior.
Yeah, I've tried
To
their
be
lips.
completely honest with you, I actually wear a lot of drugstore makeup. I'm
Oh,
not
yeah,
even gonna
same.
lie.
I'm
Like
not
the
knocking it off.
drugstore
I
stuff,
guess
like
that's
it hits.
I guess what you know what I'm saying, right? Like
I know
stay
exactly what you're
within like it
saying.
doesn't matter how much money you make, like it only matters like what you're willing to do. And so if you're willing to do the
Yeah.
minimum, then go be with the bare minimum, bitch. Like
Right. Or
don't
give me the opportunity to decide if I think you're handsome enough to like you enough for that. Like,
yeah.
don't even talk about the money that you make and see if I would have been fine, like still wanting to date you without you saying sharing those details, you
And I
know?
bet you that's also the same guy that was like, oh, the last girl I dated was such a gold digger. All she wanted was fancy dinners.
Well,
And
that's
but
actually one of the things that he said about his ex-wife, because of course I asked, like, why didn't it work out? You know?
gross.
And so his response was, she was very educated, and she had an Ivy League education, and she was an architect, and she wanted to start her own business. And so, I'm allowing her to
Allowing. Whoa.
I'm allowing her to build
Allowing.
a business, while she's taking care of our kids. But I know what goes into being an entrepreneur. These are his words. I know what goes into being an entrepreneur. And, I just didn't see her actually building the business. And so if I started to ride her on some of those things, all I would get is pushback. And here I am paying for it. And so I did empathize with him a little bit, because I'm an entrepreneur too. So I
Yeah.
do know it takes a lot of work. However, I've never been an entrepreneur while also raising children. So I don't know. But he's like, I'm paying for childcare. I'm paying for a nanny so that she can basically build this business. But nothing's happening with the business. But here she is taking trips with her girlfriends, running up my credit card, shopping, doing all the things. And so that's problematic when I'm breaking my back working all day. And I won't disagree with that. I think that that's abusive behavior. I know that if I had a very wealthy husband who was successful and was working all day, every day, and I decided that I wanted to be home taking care of the kids, then that's my job. I'm going to be doing that. Now, if I have a business, which I already have a business, like if him and I were to have gotten serious, my business isn't going anywhere. I'm still going to be the CEO of my company. But at that point, I would have a nanny, and that nanny would be helping out while I'm working from home from my home office. But we would be splitting the time. Now, if she didn't have a successful business yet, and she was in the process of building it and not putting in the legwork to build it, and she's over here taking trips and shopping, that's problematic. It is.
I will
So he
say
goes,
though,
he goes, I don't want to be grooming a Stepford wife. That was the part that I left out. And I was like, okay, yeah. So now I think he's
oh,
hypersensitive to like
yes,
spending money and all of that. But,
yes.
look at who you're dating.
And I think that's the thing. It's really not fair to put his past trauma on a new girl, right? Like it's one thing to be a gentleman, pay for these first few dates, but obviously know that you can hold it on your own. Like he's seen you, like you said, you go on dates. Like I see your blinker. I spy Cartier. You know what I'm saying? Like he obviously knows you do just fine by yourself. Like he knows this isn't mommy or daddy's money, anything like that. So that to me
A
is
slap in the face, kind of.
yeah, low key. Like you think I need your money or I just want to be your stay at home Stepford wife. Like I built all this, but now I'm gonna throw all of this for you just to take care of children.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we all have our past traumas, but it's just unfortunate when
And that's like kind of what I said to
they
him in
want to do
the
that.
text message today. Like when I ended it, I was like, I'm not asking for anything that I can't do myself, that I can't maintain myself. But here's the catch. If I need to do it for myself while I'm in a committed relationship with somebody, then I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
Because what value are you adding?
Exactly. No, exactly. These are the right questions. And I think more girls need to ask these questions. And, but like you said, like somehow it sounds bad or you're going to sound like a gold digger or judgy or, whatever adjective they want to use. But it's true. Like a partner, like we don't, again, it's not the 1920s. We don't need them for a credit card. We don't need them for a driver's license. And we don't need them to,
But there
come
is a
save us.
courting stage. There is a real courting stage. And I think it's
Yes.
important, because if I'm going to decide to hang up my player card, because we all got it, right? Like I can have my pick of the litter. So if I'm going to choose you, what are you doing to make yourself stand out from the rest? Like, why
Hmm.
am I going to choose you? And it's not about how much money you're going to spend on me. That's not it at all. It's how are you going to make me feel? Do I feel like I'm a princess around you? Do I feel like I'm your queen? Do I feel like you're putting in effort? Do I feel like, I can feel safe in your presence and that you can lead me? When I had to remind him, like, the woman's supposed to walk on the inside of the road, I'm not supposed to be reaching for my door. Like, I am a very alpha woman. So I noticed about myself, like, I want to be feminine, I want to be
Yeah.
submissive. I don't mind being a stay at home mom as long as I can run my business from home.
Hmm.
These are the things I've decided for myself. And I will naturally tap into that nurturing feminine nature that is my instinct, as long as I am under the leadership of a very strong masculine man. And if I have to remind you to do the things like that, then that doesn't make me feel like I'm in my feminine. I can't just be a ditz and just be like, whatever daddy says. Like, no,
Right,
because
right.
now I have to look out for my own safety, and I have to like pay attention to the things that you're missing.
Absolutely. Like, you know, the lifestyle, the money, whatever. I think at the end of the day, like we just want to feel safe and secure in his presence, like around
Yes.
him. And
Yes.
part of that safety, part of that security is financial safety and financial security. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Um, like they say all the time, don't just date a man for his potential or whatever, because
Yeah,
not
that's
every
what I've
man,
done.
not every man reaches his potential.
Not every man
Unfortunately,
does. You have to date somebody for
unfortunately.
who and what they are in that moment. And if you're
Yes.
not okay with that, then that ain't the one. You know how many
Yep.
times I tried to build a boyfriend? It don't work. It don't work. The
Nah.
workshop does not exist. We're not going to create it.
Mm-mm.
Like, that is the perfect way to emasculate a man. It does not work. So you have to find one that already comes potential. And the only way to do that is to be very clear on what it is that you want. Period.
Um, what did 800,000 say when you broke up with him today?
A man's ego is very fragile. So
The most fragile.
yeah,
The most fragile.
he went from being somebody who was so powerful and so secure in his masculinity, and no matter what I can say, nothing would sway him to, I agree. Like he agreed with what I said, saying like this isn't gonna work out. And he was like, regardless of my divorce, whether or not I was going through my divorce, I think he said it didn't even make sense. And I didn't bother to ask because I didn't care, but he said the gulf is too wide. Just to this is just to show your face. This is just to show you how square he was. Like, who talks like that? The gulf is too wide. And I think, and this is speculation, right? I think
It's
what
not
he means,
speculation.
this is speculation. I think what he meant by that is that what I had been saying from the beginning. Like, we are two very different people. We
Yeah.
have two different ideas of what a lifestyle should look like, what we are both interested in. Like, I don't think 43 to 35 is that big of an age gap between like a man and a woman. I
No.
actually think that's a healthy one. But like, he got in my car the other day, and I think Chris Brown was on the radio, and he was like, "Oh, you're listening to 20-year-old music," and I'm just like, if we can't connect on music, like this
Whoa.
is going nowhere fast. Cause like,
Why?
how do you not like Chris Brown? Like,
Well,
what?
why does that sound like a diss? Like, oh, a 20-year-old music?
Right? Right?
Like
Yeah. So
it's one thing if you just don't like Chris Brown, but why? But that sounds like such a passive aggressive diss. Gross.
yeah, yeah. So like that for me, like music for me is a love language, and like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, for me, I'm just like, we need to be able to have things in common, like the same. It's okay if we're fundamentally different in other areas. Like, if I'm a little bit more edgy and you're a little bit more square, that's actually kind of cute and quirky.
Yeah.
But if we have to like the same music, we have to like to dine at the same places, we want to have to like travel to the same places, like ultimately where we want to live and what cars we want to drive, like all of that needs to align in
Hmm.
order for us to live in harmony. And if that's not in unison, it won't work.
Do you have a physical type?
Oh yeah. Everybody I've dated, like they all could be brothers. Like I've
Wow.
it's pretty disgusting. Yeah,
It's
it's
pretty
like
disgusting.
it's pretty
Okay, she
disgusting.
knows. At least she knows. She knows and
At
she
least I
admits
know
it.
what
It
I
is what it
like.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is what it is,
Tall,
and that's
dark, and
okay.
handsome. I like a fit build. I like somebody who I've always dated black men. And I'm a sucker for a really nice smile. And
That's
I
okay.
like well groomed, like
Yeah.
just really good self-care maintenance. So, yeah, that's my type.
So obviously you just broke it off with Mr. 800. So I give the men nicknames, right? Because
Yeah. Oh, I thought
like
we
I
were
said,
calling him Mr. Dessert. We're gonna call him
oh,
Mr.
but
800.
he wasn't very sweet, honey. So we're
Dang.
gonna call him Mr. 800 thou, or Mr. 800, I guess.
Mr. 800.
So
Because
obviously
he didn't actually act like the thousand was there.
yeah, no, for real. Obviously that was like a recent end. Are you ready to get back out there and like,
Oh yeah.
so where are
Girl,
you dating? Because I know you're busy, you know, like you got your businesses.
yeah.
How are you dating?
Yeah, so I mean, it's hard, right? Because it's like a catch 22. So yes, I'm very much out there and I actually made plans with the girls tonight. I'm going out. Because as soon as that broke off, like one of my girlfriends was like, "Do you want to go out tonight?" I'm like, "I can't, I have a date." And then I text her back, I'm like, "False alarm, just canceled it. What are we doing?"
Yeah.
So she's actually dating an agent, a sports agent. And I
Oh.
guess he's bringing some of his players out tonight.
Ooh.
Now that being said, I kind of have a no athlete policy because I just know I've played in those waters before. They're not
Okay.
fun. They're
Oh.
not fun. You know, if you want a man who's going to be like committed to you and serious, you're more than likely. I'm not saying that there's not anomalies to this, right? Like there are anomalies, but majority of athletes are not faithful. They just have way too many options and they make way too much money. So I actually want a faithful husband. So I don't think that I'll ever find anything serious. Even my last boyfriend, the one that I just broke up with, he was a former NFL athlete. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, okay, former, like that was way before I met him. He played in the NFL for 5 years, but like, that's out of his system. It's not. It never will be.
Yeesh.
It never will be. So that is one of the main contributing reasons to why we broke up. So that being said, tonight I'm just planning on going out to have fun. But I'm 35. I can't ignore the fact that my biological clock is ticking.
Mm-hmm.
That's just science. So if I'm going to sit here and waste time in my prime years while I look like this, licking my wounds, I'm literally doing myself a disservice. So I don't have the time
Yeah.
to sit there and like cry. So yes, I'm out there. I'm on the dating apps. It's trash. It's like, you got to kiss a few frogs until you find the prince. But then I met the last boyfriend, the one I just talked about, on a dating app, and he turned out to be a toad. So you just never know. It's like it's this game, but then, if I'm out in person, you would think that I get approached all the time. I don't. Like, how many times I've been told by men online that I have an intimidating look and they would never have come up to me in person. So it's like, what am I supposed to do? Plus, I work from home, which
Yeah.
is a nice added benefit, but it's like, I'm not going to meet somebody at work, but then also I would never want to date someone I work with because that's just like not a thing. So it's like,
Right.
where do you meet people? Like, how do you do this unless you want to have a long distance relationship, which is also something I'm not interested in
Nope.
doing. So it's a numbers game, girl. Like
Yeah.
I hate it. It's exhausting. And it's like, it sucks because I'm like, somebody could get such a better version of me if I wasn't so like just exhausted by the dating process. But I'm like, if you can get past the tough shell of me, like, let's just get to it. These are the questions. Are you on board after this first date or not? Like, did I even like you enough to continue? Because like, it's tough.
I feel you, girl. I feel you. I work from home too.
I
Are
mean,
you on?
where are you meeting people? Like, how do you do it? It's like it's
I
probably the
mean,
same thing I'm
the
doing.
yeah, at the gym. Well, not so the apps and the gym. But what they'll do is they'll
But that's
find
hard
me
too.
from the
Yeah.
gym and then slide in my DM. So they've seen me at the at gym, and then they'll see like the gym repost me or something, and then they'll add me and then slide in the
Oh,
DMs.
that's a good way. See, I go to
Yeah,
fit and like I don't know, like I don't like when guys come up to me in the gym and I think that like real men
yeah.
know that's like taboo and they
Yeah,
won't
it's
do
weird. It's
it.
weird.
But like that's not a thing at fit where like posting and then the gym reposts it. So it's like it's one of
Yeah.
those things where it's like, ah, beautiful stranger, I hope I see you again. And if we see each other enough times and like we lock eyes, like maybe you'll get the courage to say hello because if I'm really interested in a guy, I will never approach him because then I feel like I'm in my masculine, but I have very strong eyes. So if I shoot you a look and you don't register and know that that look is your invitation, it's already doomed. It's already doomed.
Sometimes men are just dumb though. You got to drop like maybe a little bit more
What am
hints,
I
right?
supposed to do?
Like
Like the bend and snap? Like what is this? Legally blonde?
goodness,
The fuck?
girl. Guys at the gym before.
I
Um,
can't. I can't. It's cringy to
like,
me.
yeah. They didn't end well. One, like, flirted with me at the gym, but ended up having a girlfriend. And then the other one was a little, like, we went on a date and I did not feel safe. Let's just put it that way.
Mm.
Um,
Ooh, that's really bad.
yeah,
Whoa.
it was, yeah, it was not cool. I was not going to see him. So I absolutely did not see him again. And I see him at the gym and he is a ghost to me. I don't even look his way. I just literally walk right past him. Yeah, I don't give a fuck. Like,
Yikes.
I know you are not a good man.
Like
But
like I'm gonna drug your drink kind of like unsafe.
so after dinner, so you know what? Usually I like to get picked up, but I don't know why. Something told me that night to drive myself.
Your intuition.
And it's crazy because girl, you know I get picked up. Like men will send an Uber for me. Um, but something told me like, hey, just drive yourself. And so I drove myself and he walked me to my car and I was like, oh, okay, bye. I opened my driver's door. He opened my driver's door, and I went to give him a hug goodnight because the rest of the night was fine. And he two-hand ass grabs me and pulls
Oh
me in
no.
and like makes out with me and is like kind of like because my door was open, my driver's door was open, and I was like, fuck. If he was like, I was scared he was gonna like, put me in the car and do some shit. So I was like a little bit nervous, but good thing it was the driver's side. So then I like pretended to lean on the horn and like I honked the horn hella loud. And like obviously that scared both of us, but just him. And so I was like, oh, okay, good night. And then I left and fucking never saw him
That
again.
is off. Like, where did he get off thinking
Yeah,
he had the right? That's wild. Oh my
it's
God.
wild. But the only app I'm using is Hinge, and it's trash. So I was gonna ask if you're doing something. I'm not. If there's
I feel like I've had better luck on Bumble. Two
okay,
of my relationships actually came from Bumble. The two past relationships, obviously, neither of them worked, but they resulted in relationships.
okay.
Um, Hinge, I feel like you'll see more people because it's just the more popular one, but I don't know. Like, I don't think there's a sign, like, there's no algorithm to it.
There's no like one
I
app that's
and
better
like
than the
I'm
other.
literally like on Bumble, I'm on Hinge, I'm on this other one called Luxy, which is like terrible. Like don't even
Okay.
bother. And because there's like a whole bunch of like old men on it, and I think it's like more like a sugar
Gross.
baby one, and I'm like that's just not my MO. But
Yeah.
the way that they like presented the app is like it's more like higher caliber people, like people who have their shit together, that are
My
looking to date other higher caliber people, but that's really not the vibe. The vibe is like old men who are looking for like sugar babies.
have you heard of the League?
And then that was the other one I was going to say. So I'm also in the
Okay.
league, not really a fan of it. I don't like the way that it's like, because they'll like recommend you matches and then you can like look at people nearby. I recently met a guy on there that I'm like, oh, he's cute. He seems like somebody that I would like want to date. But
Okay.
then when push came to shove, like he was like, "Oh, I don't like to talk on the app. Like, can we talk on Instagram?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine." So we're talking to Instagram, and like he asked for my number, and I have a rule, and I don't know if this is right, wrong, or indifferent, but it's my rule, and
Okay.
I don't give out my number until I meet someone in person because I don't want a pen pal. Like that's my way of weeding out the people that are like serious. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be texting you all day. I don't want to like be FaceTiming you. Like, take me out on a date. Let's see if we have in person chemistry. Like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And so that, he said, okay, well, I guess we're just going to like be DMing until then. So you would think like that's his motivation. Let me set up a date. But no, days go by. He's watching my story. He's liking things. And that's how I was cracking up. But like when you posted today, I'm like, stop fucking liking my story and like just let me know you like me.
It's childish. It's
It's
childish.
childish. And like that's how I know he wasn't serious, right? So
Yeah.
then he finally asked me on a date. I accept. But like the first day I met him, I think it was like a week ago today. And so he was going out to dinner, or maybe, no, maybe it was Saturday. Either way, he was going out to dinner. He said he was just going out to dinner. And then I see, like, he was supposed to be going out to dinner in Orange County. And then I see he's like out at a club in LA on his Instagram. And I'm like, oh, he's a partier. And so, like, I told him, I was like, are you sure that we're looking for the same thing? Like, you don't really seem that serious,
Yeah.
whatever. And so like that night when he asked me out on the date, which was supposed to be the following day, I watched his story again and he's out in the club again on a Wednesday. And I'm like,
On a
again, like, are we on a
Wednesday.
Wednesday? And I'm like, are you sure we're looking for the same thing? It's like, you're not giving me serious vibes. He's like, says the girl that will only let me DM her. I was like, okay, touche, right? But then he like read my message and then like left me on scene. And I was like, oh, maybe you weren't joking or some.
Wait,
And
so
then
you guys met on the league and then went from the league to
to
Instagram.
Instagram. Yeah, and then so then he like left me on red, and I was like, oh, I guess you weren't joking because I thought he was saying it like sarcastically. And then he read that message again, and then finally responded back and was just like, sorry, I had a phone call come in. I don't really know what just happened right now. And I was like, all I'm saying is like, are we looking for the same thing? Like, anyway, it got weird. And I was just like, I could tell that like he was playing these games, and I'm like, I was already going up Shit's Creek fast, so I said never mind.
Is it is it the same Instagram that I follow you on?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, I actually have quite the opposite rule. I'm not going to give you my Instagram until like after we've gone on a couple dates. Because I
Okay.
like the phone number thing is like and I'll only give them my phone number after they've already made dinner reservations and we're clear that it's dinner because this bitch is gonna eat. Okay, like that is a fact. It's off season, baby. You are feeding me. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
I'll give them
God.
my phone number after they make dinner reservation, and then it's like we could talk a little bit more personable just on text message and off the app, and
Yeah.
then only after like I've actually never given any of them my Instagram. They'll ask and I'll just tell them like, "Hey, I'm not
You know
comfortable with
why I
that."
give it? Because I just feel like for me, it's a way of verification. Like, a lot of times people think I'm a catfish. You'd be surprised.
Oh, no,
So it's like,
I could believe that.
yeah, so it's almost like a form of verification. And then I also kind of want to see like what are you about? Like what is it that you do in your free time? What are you on? Like, does this make sense to me? It's
Yeah.
just a way to like verify, is this somebody that
Okay.
I would even enjoy having dinner with?
Yeah.
And then also to make sure that he ain't got nothing to hide, even though somebody can have something to hide. But what I've noticed is that the guys who don't have social media typically have really something to hide.
Oh no, my date tonight doesn't have social media. He's
Tread lightly.
40. He's 40. So I was hoping it was just because he's older.
You never know. Tread lightly. That's all I'll say. I mean, it's
Yeah.
possible. The guy that I just told you about didn't have social media, but that's because of his profession. Being a federal prosecutor and U.S. Attorney General,
Mm.
like, it's not a good look to be having socials like that because you get vetted.
We'll find out. Stay tuned to the green bubble.
Hey, can't wait. Can't wait.
But
You too.
yes, before I let you go, I wanted to ask, what advice do you have for women who want to start their own business and be an entrepreneur? How did you say?
Entrepreneur,
Like
entrepreneur. Yeah.
you? Yes.
Yeah.
What advice would you give
the
women?
the main thing that I always tell everybody, woman or not, just anybody who's interested in getting involved in entrepreneurship, is think about what you're passionate about. Think about the things that really just light you up and bring you joy, and then find a way to monetize that.
Hmm.
And start off with a side hustle. Like if you have a really solid like W-2 job or just income in general, then I always recommend like start off your bout at entrepreneurship as a side hustle, as a passion project, and then allow it to evolve into what it will be. And then at that point, if you see that it's become very lucrative and you can retire from what it is that you're doing full time, then go all in with it. And it doesn't have to be like completely replacing the money that you're making currently. But if it's like an 80% thing, like there is a little bit of like, how much are you going to bet on yourself, and how much more can you make if you go all in and you actually take a risk?
I love that. And since we started, or we had such a long conversation about dating, what is one piece of dating advice you would give men, and what piece of dating advice you would give women?
Oh, you're challenging me on the one to men, but I'll start with the one to women because
Okay.
I feel like the biggest thing that I've learned, at least in my last relationship, is that when a man really likes you, he's gonna do everything that he can to impress you. So he's gonna, fudge the truth a little bit. He might even fabricate it, and he's gonna paint a pretty picture of what he wants you to see. So there are ways that women can verify what it is that men are telling us, right? And like certain measures that are in place for us to protect ourselves. And, to protect and preserve some of these things, I can't actually mention the name of them. But there are certain Facebook pages that, if anyone's curious, they can get in touch with me, DM me, ask me, whatever. But there's Facebook pages that you can do your research on. There's also apps that can be downloaded to run a phone number through it and see if there's reports on that. Because you can actually find out if a man has like hired prostitutes before. Because somebody that you think is like the greatest person can turn out to be like a total scumbag.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so good at putting on a front. So I encourage every woman before you go on a date with someone, do your research, know what you're getting yourself into, look at his social media, like see what's going on there, you know, check the Facebook pages, check the apps, do your research, do your due diligence. For a man, I would say when it comes to dating a woman, um, I have male friends, and I do think that there are a lot of women out here that are dating just because it's like, what can I get from you? Like, you got to feed me. I want a free dinner. Like, what are you bringing to my life? And like, if they haven't made it abundantly clear that they're dating with the intention of marriage and like with the purpose of something serious, then start with like a coffee date or start with like, let's just grab a drink. Like don't go balls to the wall first date and just like try to impress her and be like, oh, I'm going to take you to like born and raised. No, that's not it. Because you're going to get taken advantage of and used out the ass. Because unfortunately, there's more of the women that are not serious that are just like, what's one day? At least I get a free dinner out of it. Like me personally, I value my time so heavily and I don't have a whole lot of free time. So if I'm accepting a date with somebody, it's because I actually think that there's real potential there and I'm liking that person. I'm attracted to them. I want to get to know them better.
Yeah.
But the last thing that I'm going to do is go sit with a guy just for a free meal, act like I like him and laugh at his jokes. I can't be that fake. Like, I
Yeah.
wear my emotions on my sleeve, and like the moment I get in front of you, if I'm not attracted to you or if I don't like you, you're gonna see the ick all over.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of women that are good at pretending. So start with, let's just grab a coffee. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And then, feel her out and check the vibe. And if she's like 100% against that, probably not the one for you, bro.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Victoria Rose. Tell the people where they can find you, your channels, your socials.
Yeah. Well, on all platforms for the most part, pretty much, I am at she is dot Victoria Rose. She dot is dot Victoria Rose. And on my Instagram, I actually have a link tree with all of my different businesses, also my podcast link. But my podcast channel is the Glam Design. And I think the handle is also she dot is dot Victoria Rose. So please subscribe. Please listen. Please connect with me. I love building my community. I feel like I have something in
Yes.
my eye.
And I will definitely type those out and put those in the description box below.
Oh,
And
thank you.
this was such a fun conversation. I feel like we're
It
just on
really
the
was.
same vibration, even though we've never met. And like I
Should we
can
just become best friends?
I think so. And I can totally understand when, people say you have a certain look, but it really just shows. Like, don't judge a book by its cover. Like, you are so sweet. You're so beautiful. And I absolutely love that you're a girl's girl and an
Mm,
independent woman.
thank you.
So thank you so much for your time, for your honesty and your candor. And
Oh,
we gotta,
thanks.
we gotta get together in real life now.
I feel like we really do. I think we should go out get some drinks, go get some
Yes.
dinner. We have so much more dating stories to share, especially after
So many.
tonight. So,
Yes. Well,
but thank you so
awesome.
much for having me.
Of course.
Bye,
Bye.
girl.